In this video, we will go over the following information. First, we will look at the header information in each of the templates. Then we will go through the question types to fill out templates for essay problems, fill-in-the-blank problems, matching problems, multiple choice problems, and true and false problems. In this section, we will be discussing how to fill out the basic metadata at the top of every template. The metadata can be found between the header information tags that are at the top of the template. The first thing you'll see in these header tags is the assignment title. The assignment title is optional, but it will help to tell the taggers when they tag this content what each item should be named, and this name will often be displayed to the user. So it is good to have it mean something. In this case, you could do something like Chapter 5 Test, which would tell the user that they are in the test for Chapter 5, and then every question would be Chapter 5 Test.1, Chapter 5 Test.2, depending on what question they were at. Or it could be something more descriptive of the actual content that is in the assignment. One option would be something like biopsychology and the human brain, if you were doing the entire assignment on that. The next few items are truly metadata that we use more for placement of the items than it is for items content that will actually go into the product, but it's still good for us to have this information. The author would just be the last name of the author, so it could be something like Schultz, or it could be something like Schultz Hyman. It can be pretty much anything you want. That just, again, will help us to track back if we need to figure out where this content came from. The print ISBN here is truly the core print ISBN that this content is related to. If there is no core print ISBN, it could also be the IAC of the product that this will feed into. So in this case, it just needs to be some 13-digit ISBN that is associated with the content. The title is the title of the core print that this is associated with, or the product that it will be sold with. So a good one would be something like Biopsychology Today to go along with this assignment title. The ebook 13-digit ISBN is somewhat misnamed in that we're not really looking for an ebook ISBN so much as we are looking for an SSO ISBN that this content will be associated with. This could be a course mate ISBN, it could be a course mode ISBN. It's whatever product this digital content will eventually feed into. Again, this should be a 13-digit ISBN, but it should be different than what you have in the print ISBN. The chapter section and name and number really inform us where in the title we are at. That way we know that if you don't have in the assignment title something like a chapter name or a chapter number, that we can kind of figure out what order these assignments should be going in. A good thing here would be something like Chapter 5. The section number could be something like 1.1, and this would tell us that we are in Chapter 5, Section 1.1, and then all of the questions will feed off after that. The next few items are really so that we could track back if we ever have problems with this content or need changes to the content made, that we know who to go to. The content development contact should be somebody within Cengage who is responsible for being the internal contact for this content. I'm going to put my name here since I am a Cengage employee, but this really could be anybody who is on the content development side that the content creator is working with directly. The content creator name should be the name of the person and or group that is creating this content. Sometimes we will have a vendor creating this content, so you could put the vendor name. Or it could be an actual person, a SME or a professor, who is creating this content, and you would just want to put their name in directly. That way we know who to go back to if we have questions about the content itself outside of Cengage. Finally, we would put in a creation date. The reason behind the creation date is so that if we need to know when this content was created and if it was later revised, we have an idea of, at least for this template, when this content was created. So that is the header section in detail. Again, this should be filled out for every template. If you're doing multiple templates for the same title, you can copy and paste this from template to template, since most of the information is going to be the same. The only things, of course, that would be different across templates would be the assignment title and possibly the chapter, section, name, and number. Otherwise, you pretty much reuse this across the board. In this section, we will talk about how to do an essay problem. The first thing you should always fill out in any template is the header information. This has been covered in a different section of this instructional video. You will see some material here that talks about referring to the Word template authoring documentations, which you can, and has a lot more in-depth information about how to author these different types. The essay question is a relatively simple question that asks for a question, an answer, and a possible rejoinder if one is needed. There are different types of essays that can be requested. The question type will show you how to change these types if you need a different one. The basic type is essay. The essay question type is basically a question with a large text box that will allow a student or user to type in their answer and submit it for manual grading to their instructor. If stylization is needed within the essay, things such as bolding, italicizing, or other such needs in terms of the answering of it, you would want to do an essay CK editor. The essay CK editor type allows the user to have a formalized style box that can change their style as they're using it within the application itself. This is, of course, is not a requirement for most essays, but it could be useful for display purposes. The other main type of essay that we do is called a drop box. To signify this, you would type in the question type of essay drop box. An essay drop box, instead of a interactive place for the user to type in their answer, they would have a button to click that will allow them to select a file, pretty much any file type that you can think of, and that will be submitted to their professor and or instructor for manual grading. The difference here is that you're actually submitting a file instead of typing in your answer. So this is good for longer essays, like page-long essays, or if you are asking them to create an Excel document or a formalized Word file or an Access database that you need to have graded. The good thing is that regardless of what kind of essay you're choosing, the template does not change other than the question type. The first thing that you will fill out in the essay template other than the question type is your actual question. So let's do that now. What is your best solution for dispute resolution when two parties cannot come to terms? So this is a pretty simple question. You can see it's only one line. However, the questions really can be as long as you want them to be. They can be a line, a paragraph. They could be multiple pages long if you wanted them to be, but again, that would be a lot of screen real estate. But you should include here any text that you want to display to the user when they are looking at the question, any images that you would want to see. So if you have an image, you could paste it actually right in here. We would ask that if you do have an image that you also provide it to us in high resolution at the exact size you would like it at in a separate zip file as well. But it's good to have it here in the template so we know where in the question it would like to be displayed. Once you've finished putting in all of your question data, whether it's text or image, you can then move down to the next line, which is answer. Since essay is a manually graded type, the answer is only going to be shown to the instructor during their grading of the actual essay question. So often this will be something simple like answers may vary. Again, this will not be displayed to a student user, it will only be displayed to instructors. Some groups will also put in a more detailed answer if there actually is a correct answer to this question. So it could be something like mediation. So maybe mediation is the answer to this question. However, this answer is really just a guidepost for those who are manually grading the question. It does not actually play into the grading itself. Finally, you have the option to do a rejoinder. If you do not need a rejoinder in this, you can always get rid of it and just have the question and answer. However, if you would like some sort of feedback to appear to the user after they have submitted their answer, you will need to fill out this rejoinder topic. So here I could put the best option is often mediation. However, it could be that counseling is a good way to go as well. So when the user submits their answer to this essay question, they can go back to this question and see this feedback that would be displayed on screen for them. Again, this is not a required field. It is optional, but it is something that many groups will want. Finally, you have a metadata section for every question. This metadata section is completely optional. If you choose not to use it, you can completely delete it by cutting it out altogether. However, if you do want to keep the metadata, you would just fill out the items that you would want to have in there. Again, you do not need all of them. If there's only certain ones you're going to fill out, you can delete the ones you're not going to use. This metadata is not right now for CNOW and CXP type of products captured anywhere. It stays in the templates for possible future use on other platforms such as MT4. But if you feel like you would like to capture it, there is a place for it. Once you filled out or not filled out your metadata, you can go on to your second question and fill out, again, the exact same information that you filled out in the first one. Again, text, images, or hyperlinks in the question section next to the number, an answer that will be displayed to the instructor who is grading, and then a possible rejoinder that will be shown to all users once they've answered the question. That's the extent of filling out the essay template. We will now move on to a different template to show you how that works. This next video will focus on how to fill out the fill-in-the-blank problem type. As you can see, we've already filled out our header information here at the top, so we will dive right into the question types themselves. There are actually two different types of fill-in-the-blank questions. One is your standard fill-in-the-blank, which has a question type of fill-in-the-blank, or FITB. The second type is what we call our fill-in-the-blank select, or FITB select, which allows the user to select their answer from a drop-down list. But let's focus on the fill-in-the-blank standard first. The first thing you're going to want to do is to fill out your question itself with the number of blanks that you want the user to fill out. So here's a good option. A blank is a large organization which is structured blank and carries out specific functions. As you can see, we've got 2 blanks here, and each of these blanks will be needed to have the user fill out them in the actual application. So the first thing we were going to focus on is having an answer for this first blank. One possible answer here is government. As you can see, I have government as lowercase. If the user does type in uppercase, that is okay. They will still get the question correct. However, spelling is very important with the fill-in-the-blank question type. So you will want to make sure that your answers are spelled exactly the way you would want them to be spelled by the user. If I were to accidentally have an O here, and this were captured during conversion, the only way the user could get this answer correct is if they actually typed in the answer, "govern me not." So you'll want to make sure that you're doing extra close proofreading and copy editing when it comes to the fill in the blank types. Now sometimes you will have a blank that actually could be answered with more than one answer. So in this case, government is a correct answer, but another possible correct answer could be bureaucracy. So to show this, we would separate these answers with two uppercase X's. These show us that, hey, there is another answer here that is feasible. So another answer is bureaucracy, and we will type that in here. And now this first blank here can be filled out with either government or bureaucracy as correct answers, and the application will count either one as correct. Now you can see here that we have two blanks instead of just the one, so we will have to have another set of answers. Answers in the fill in the blank template are separated by a comma. This is why we would ask you that you not use anything like a comma when giving your answers for fill in the blank. Fill in the blank really is meant for single or one or two word answers, not for long sentences that might have different punctuation within them. But if you have questions about that, please contact your CDIG representative and they can help you out. To answer the second blank, we would need to type in another answer after the comma. So here, a possible answer is systematically. So now, if you typed in for the first blank the word government and the second blank the word systematically, you would get this answer correctly. Much like the first blank, we could have other answers. So again, we would use that uppercase double X and type in another answer that could be typed in by users, which in this case is hierarchically. Now you can have as many answers as you want for any single blank. So I could continue on using that XX to separate possible answers. But again, note that the user is going to have to exactly match whatever spelling and tense you have used. So you'll want to make sure that you account for all of those when you have your answers. Finally, there's an analysis section here, which is overall feedback that you can have about the entire fill in the blank question. This is normally something like see Chapter 3, Organizations, for more information. Now this will not actually link back to the Chapter 3 in the MindTap ebook or any other ebook you might have associated with this problem, but it will provide text feedback that will be displayed to the user after either they click check my work or once they've completed the entire assignment and submitted their answers, and they can go back through the assignment and see this feedback. This is not a required field, but if you would like to have that feedback in, you can add it in. Similarly, the metadata section here is also not a required field. Currently in the CNOW and CXP applications, we do not capture any sort of metadata that can be displayed to users, but there are forward-thinking applications such as our MindTap 4 application which do have these abilities. So many people are utilizing these metadata sections to capture this data in the hopes that we may go back and be able to capture it at a later date for future projects. If you choose not to utilize the metadata section, you can delete it wholesale, or you can delete certain sections within here that you may not need to fill out. So if I'm not going to fill out an LO, I can just get rid of it. Down here is our fill in the blank select problem. So this is a problem where you would have one or more blanks in your question, and you would ask the user to select from a drop-down list of answers that they could select as the correct answer. So we're going to start out real simply and just do a single sentence here that says blank are the things that upset or excite us the most. You will then have to have whatever answers you want to display to the user. You can see here we've got 4 options. You can have more than 4 options. You can have less than 4 options. You have to have more than one. But for any options you're not going to use, you can just delete these. And if you need more, you can add in more letters if you need to. But we're going to stick with the 4 today. So we're going to go with exciters for option A, pressures for option B, stressors for option C, and depressors for option D. So these are the 4 items that will be in the drop-down box, which will be in this blank for the person who is doing this problem to select from. Now, we would recommend that when you do your answer, you actually copy and paste from the actual selection list here so that you're ensured that these are spelled exactly the same. If, for example, you had accidentally left an S off here, this is what would be captured as the correct answer in the back-end data. And since this will never match any of these items, no matter what the user picks, they will never get the correct answer. So again, we would ask that you be careful with copy editing and proofreading to ensure that the answers match exactly what the selection types are. Again, you have the option to fill out an analysis in the metadata section, but again, these are optional just as above. If you had a second blank, which we could put in here, you would then need a way to show us how each blank is filled out correctly, since you could have the same drop-down list for each blank, or you could have a different one. So if you do more than one blank, you need to copy this section for each blank. So for blank 1, we're going to stick with those options. For blank 2, we're going to have some other options. So our other options down here are just going to be some random words. They're not really going to fit with the question itself, but you can see that they can be different than the ones that we have above. And we will have to have a different answer as well. Now again, you could use the same answer and same options as you did for the first blank. You could have the same drop-down options and a different answer as you had for the first blank, but you do have the ability to do both different ones up here and different ones down here. You can still only have one analysis, since the analysis is an overall text feedback that comes when you answer the question, but again, that's optional. That's not really needed. So these are the 2 different types, your regular fill in the blank and your fill in the blank select. And with these, you need to make sure that you're filling out all of the material that we've shown here so that we know what needs to go into these blanks if it's select, or what the correct answer is so that we can match it up directly. In this video, we're going to go over the matching problem. As you can see, we've already filled out our header information, so let's dive right into the problem itself. The question type for matching is simply matching, and there are 2 different ways that you can do matching. The first way we're going to go through is a one-to-one matching, where one term on the left will match a unique term that is on the right. You can see here that we've got term and definition. Technically, these don't need to be terms or definitions. They can just be words that match with each other, or even images that match with each other. It's just that this needs to be what's in the left-hand column, and this needs to be what's in the right-hand column. So what we can do here is have something very simple and have a question, and the instructions can be something like match the colors with the categories to which they belong. So here you would have something like red and primary color, and then green, and this would be a secondary color, and then maybe something like an aqua, which would be a tri-terry color. You can see that we are separating these not by spaces, but with tabs. This is very important so that you can have things like primary color that have a space in them, and we know that the actual separation between the 2 columns is based on the tab. You don't need to put anything else here. You also don't need to worry about randomization. Randomization is a standard default part of this question so that the user won't always know that this one always goes with this one. These will each be mixed up so that they can be challenging to the user. You can see that there is a metadata section. Like other problem types, this is not a required section since CNOW and CXP cannot currently capture nor display metadata in their applications. This would be if you want to capture this for future use in platforms such as MT4 or something else. Another way to do matching is where you might have more than one item that goes with the same question, in the sense that you may have ununique items in one of the columns. So, for example here, match the colors with the categories in which they belong. In this case, you can see we have a left column and a right column. The reason we have this is that you may want to replicate a term in the right column that you would want to not have duplicated. So in this case, you've got unique values in the left-hand column, red, blue, green, and purple, and then you have some duplicated terms in the right-hand column. In this case, you won't actually see two different boxes in the right-hand column called primary colors or secondary colors. You would only see one box, but you would have both red and blue connect to the one box that says primary colors, and green and purple connected to the secondary colors box. These columns here help us to show what needs to happen when you have duplicates. So instead of just being separated by this tab, this column designation here lets us know that there will be duplicates in at least one of the columns and that we need to consolidate those into one single box. Again, for this problem type, you've got metadata, and the metadata again can be optional, or you can use bits and pieces of it as you so choose. So these are the two different types of matching that you have. These can be combined into one single assignment template if you so choose, or they can be separate ones. And you can use either one based on the functionality that you need. In this next video, we're going to go over the multiple choice problem type. As you can see, we've already filled out our header information, so let's go down to the topic of the question itself. You can see that the question type is multiple choice, or MC for short, and really you're looking to answer in your question and then 2 to more answers. You can see we start out with a standard 4 set of questions here in the template, but you can cut this down to 2 by just having A and B, or you can add more letters if you need more options. So this one is pretty simple. You would enter in a question, and the questions can be long or they can be short. They can be paragraphs long or multiple paragraphs. They can include images, or they can include hyperlinks, or possibly even a video, but you need to put all of that into the template. So if you have an image, you'll want to actually paste the image itself into here. It can be of a smaller type or lower resolution, but we would need that image at the exact resolution and size that you would want delivered to us in a separate zip file. The reason we would want it put into the template is so we can see exactly where that image would go. Similarly with hyperlinks, if you need a hyperlink, please put it exactly where you would want it to go in the question. Or if you have a video, you'd have to have a reference to that video in the question that we could easily find as an attachment to the ticket that you would put in. So after you've put in your question, you will then enter your actual answers that are down here. So answer number 1 could be something like this. You can see we do not need to retain those brackets. Those are just there to show you that this is what needs to be filled out. If you retain the brackets will actually be captured as part of the question, so we recommend removing them. So you would want to put all the answers here that you want presented to the user. If for some reason you do not want these answers randomized, since randomization is a standard part of our process. You would need to put at the top here in the header, no randomization. You will also want to put that into the ticket that eventually gets submitted for the conversion of this questions. So here you've got your different options, and then here you would want to just put the letter of the correct answer. It can be uppercase, it can be lowercase, but just so that it corresponds to the correct answer that's up here. So if I pick A, then the correct answer is because she is a female. There's not much else to this problem type. There is a metadata section, which is optional. Currently, our CNOW and CXP applications do not capture nor use metadata when they display questions to customers. But this section is for forward-thinking applications such as our MindTap 4 or possible other applications that we might be creating soon, where this metadata will be able to be captured and displayed to customers. If you choose to use the metadata section, we would ask that you fill out those pieces of metadata that you need. Anything you don't need, you can delete. If you choose to delete this entire section, that is fine, since it is optional. But if you do use bits and pieces, we would ask that you leave it there and only delete the actual items that you don't need. So if I'm not going to have difficulty, I could delete difficulty. There is another option when you're doing multiple choice, and that is to again have your question and your answers very similar to what we see up here. So we're going to actually just copy this, since we're going to use the same question for our second example. The difference here is that instead of just the answer, we would like there to be feedback that is provided to the user once they've either clicked the check my work functionality or once they've submitted the entire quiz and have come back and are looking for feedback. So this is text feedback that will appear to the user, and you can see that this will also show us what the correct or incorrect answer is. So you can see here in the analysis section, each option has either incorrect or correct. You would want to choose one of those and get rid of the one that is not the one you would want. So if A is correct, we want to leave it with correct. And then it says enter rejoinder here. This rejoinder here is text feedback that would appear to the user when they have come back into the problem and are looking at it after they've answered it. So it could be something like correct, and then a lot of this text, and it tells them where in the text that they can actually go and find more information about this. You do need a correct or incorrect for every single option. Usually the incorrect will have the same rejoinder feedback, since if it's incorrect, it's incorrect. However, you do have the opportunity to have each of these be something different, so they don't all have to have the same text after the correct or incorrect. That is completely up to you. It can be something like incorrect, this is just not feasible. Now again, that doesn't really go along with the bevy of feedback that we've given above, but as you can see, it just shows that you can have a different set of feedback for each answer if you so choose. We do need the correct and incorrect spelled correctly, and this is a good place to talk about making sure that the things are copy edited and proofed well, because if we don't know if the answer is correct or incorrect, that can throw off the conversion a little bit. You do still have that metadata section down here, even with this analysis section, and again, that is completely optional. So you have two different options with multiple choice. You have the simple one where it's just the question and the possible answers and just the answer, which will just give the user a correct or incorrect kind of feedback. Or if you have more involved feedback, you can have your question, your possible answers, and then this analysis section where you say correct or incorrect and then provide a lot more feedback to them. This next video will discuss the true and false problem type. As you can see, we've already filled out our header information up here, so let's go down to the problem type itself. The true-false question type is true-false, and it is very simplistic. It includes a question, you have only two options, which are standard, T and F, and then your answer. The question can be pretty much text or images or hyperlinks, and you would just have it here in the question section. If you do have images, we would ask that you include the images in the question itself, exactly where the image needs to be placed, and that you also include a higher resolution, exact sized image in a zip file that's delivered separately. You do not need to do anything to the A and B here. These are just going to be a standard part of the template. And down here in the answer section, you would choose either A or B. So if I wanted this to be true for the user, I would put A. If I wanted it to be false for the user, I would put B. That's pretty much all there is to the true-false question type. You do have a metadata section down here. The metadata section is optional. If you choose to have it as part of your template here, you can. Currently, the CNow and CXP applications do not utilize it, hence it is not captured as part of the XML, but it could be captured in another type of version that we might use for MT4 or other applications. So if you choose to fill it out, you can. If you choose not to fill it out, you have the option to just completely delete it. But you can also just fill out bits and pieces. If you want to fill out just the difficulty or just the A head, you could also do that. Down here, we see a true-false question that is a little more complicated because it is looking to give the user some feedback after they've answered the question. So again, we can put our question in here. But down here, you can see we don't have an answer section. We just have T and F, and then it says insert answer and rejoinder here. What is being looked for here are either the words correct or incorrect, and then some information about the actual problem. So it could be correct. The study involved here is behavioral. And then here we could say incorrect. And then again, have similar feedback. We could actually use the same feedback if we wanted. Or we could have different feedback altogether. Here is of a nature that requires the organization to focus. So these do not need to be the same feedback. They can be different feedback. But these correct and incorrect are really what are telling us how to answer this question. If instead I had incorrect up here and correct down here, then the answer to this question would be false instead of true. Again, with this kind of setup, you still have your metadata section, which you can fill out or not fill out, but this just gives the user a little more information when either they click the check my work functionality or submit the entire assignment and then go back and review the feedback. That's all there is to the true-false question. Either type is available to you, and you can mix and match them in the template as you so choose.